Hello, I'm Cathy.
I'm Rachel.
And I'm Oliver. Welcome to Storygraph Book Club.
Last week, we discussed Dracula.
Spooky.
This week, we're moving on in vampire lore and talking about Interview with the Vampire.
Spooky.
So, Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice. This is a book that I'm a fan of.
Mm-hmm. How many times have you read it?
A lot.
How old were you when you first read
I
it?
think I was about 13 when I first read it. It's like my first angsty teen gothic thing.
Are you going to show them the
Yeah.
inside of the
So
cover?
I completely forgot about this. But when I first got this, in the front cover I wrote R.I.P. and underneath I wrote Read in Peace.
That was very fun.
I was so
to,
edgy
discover.
I was just very edgy as a 13-year-old little reader, falling in love with vampires and really enjoying their bleak, angsty lives.
R.I.P. Read in Peace. Did you meant to do that as like rest in peace?
Yeah, I thought that was like a funny joke. Do you think it's funny?
A little bit.
It
A
made
little
me
bit.
laugh when I saw it. I borrowed Cathy's book because I've never read Interview with the Vampire before. A vampire? The vampire?
The Vampire.
The Vampire. I've never read Interview with the Vampire before, but I know that Cathy is a big fan of it. It lives on her Pride of Place bookshelf.
Yeah, all my favourite books go on that
She's
bookshelf.
kept it since she was a dorky teen.
Yeah.
So yeah, I borrowed it, I read it, and now we're going to talk about it.
Yeah.
Blah,
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, we will be
Everyone said it.
Everyone has said it. We will be discussing things that happen throughout the novel, I imagine.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you haven't read it and want to remain unspoiled, don't watch this video.
Mm-mm.
If you don't care, that's fine.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, Rachel's going to do a plot summary.
So we open. This book is split into 4 parts. I don't remember what happens in each part. I'm really sorry about that. We're in 4 parts. We open with a vampire being interviewed by a boy in a room. Now he calls him boy. I don't think he's actually a boy. I think he's actually a man. But
Like, I get the vibe
like 19, 20,
20s, yeah.
Okay.
And that book should be retitled Boy in the Room.
Boy in the
Boy in
room.
the room. Actually, before what is this on the cover? What is this picture?
A gravestone?
Oh, maybe. I couldn't work out for the life of me what it was.
No, it's very ambiguous.
It does look
isn't
like stone, doesn't it? I was kind of thinking it was like some weird affected vampire doublet or something.
Yeah, it
But
does.
now that you've said it's a gravestone, it does look more like architecture. Back to the plot of the novel. So, a boy is interviewing a vampire, and the vampire tells him about how he became a vampire and his life. How he became a vampire. Another vampire made him a vampire. Wow. No, before that. He lives in New Orleans and his brother dies by like being levitated off the staircase and then dropping to his death or something.
Oh, I forgot about that.
And that is never explained.
No. Why do you
Never
explain it?
explained. So then he's very sad and he gets made into a vampire by someone called Lestat. And they live together. He teaches him how to be a vampire, but quite badly. And they kind of like they're friends, but they also kind of annoy each other.
Yeah.
And then they move to somewhere. Maybe they move from the country to the city of New Orleans.
Yeah.
Louis feeds on a girl, like a 5-year-old girl.
Yeah.
Feels really bad about it. And then Lestat finds her in an orphanage where she's gone because her mother is also dead. And then they turn this 5-year-old girl into a vampire. And then they live together as a vampire nuclear family. Claudia kills Lestat for turning her into a vampire, even though Louis is the reason that she's a vampire. I don't really know. I'm very confused. And then Louis and Claudia move to Europe to try and find other vampires who can tell them what it means to be a vampire, because Lestat isn't very forthcoming with anything. So they move to Europe. They find a creepy vampire in Eastern Europe. Scary. Who is just like killing people. They kill that vampire. Then they go to Paris, and then they find the Theatre des Vampires, which is full of more sophisticated vampires as opposed to feral vampires.
Theatre kid vampires.
Yeah, because they all dye their hair black because they like black is the vampire colour. So they go there. Armand wants Claudia to die so that Louis
Ew,
can stay with
okay.
him. Claudia doesn't like it. Louis does like it. Claudia makes a woman into a vampire. No, Claudia gets Louis to make a woman into a vampire to take care of her. And then he's like, oh, but I don't want to leave her because they're in love.
Yeah.
They love each other. And I don't know. But then before Claudia and Madeline can leave Paris and live happily as like vampire mother and daughter, the theatre vampires come and they take them and they put Louis in a box.
Yeah.
And then Armand gets Louis out of the box and Claudia and Madeline have been killed by the sun.
Yeah.
And then Louis like runs away, sets the theatre on fire, leaves Paris with Armand, and then we jump like however many years. They're back in New Orleans.
Like no sense.
You're right, Ola, it makes no sense. They're back in New Orleans. Louis finds Lestat again because Lestat isn't dead, even though Claudia killed him twice.
Yeah.
And then he was in the theatre that burnt to the ground. He wasn't really, he left before it burnt to the ground.
Yeah.
But he finds Lestat again, who is like losing his grip on reality and slowly dying. They don't have a chat. Louis comes out of his meeting with Lestat. I just read this today. That's why I'm more familiar with this. Like the beginning, I'm like, I don't know. But this end, I'm like, no, I know what happens. He comes out of this chat with Lestat, goes to talk to Armand. Armand is like, did he tell you about Paris? Louis is like, what would he tell me about Paris? Then Armand is like, really cagey. And then Louis goes, that you pushed her out of the door into the sun. So Armand killed Claudia? But did he really, or was he just saying that? I don't really understand. And then Armand leaves.
I'm not understanding either.
Armand leaves because Louis doesn't like him, and then we go to where we are today. We're back in the present day. And then he bites the boy because the boy wants to be made into a vampire.
Yeah.
And then he leaves. And then the boy listens to his audio recording and goes, because the boy has done like a tape recording or everything.
Yeah.
And then he's like, I need to go and see Lestat at St. Charles.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's the...
And it ends there, doesn't it?
that is not a very good summary of the plot. But here's a better summary of the plot.
That is just weird.
A vampire tells a boy that he gets made into a vampire by a not very nice vampire. They make a little girl into a little vampire. They kill the not very nice vampire. They go to Europe. They meet some more not very nice vampires. Everybody burns to death. And then Louis bites the boy. That's it. That's all you need to know.
And did you just love it?
It was okay. It's not what I was expecting at all.
Isn't it?
I read about half of it on a train to and from London the other weekend.
Yeah.
And I was very confused as to the format of it, because obviously it's called Interview with the Vampire, but I wasn't expecting it to be just a full recount. Which I did really like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it was quite slow to start. And then when they got to Paris and they met the theatre vampires, then it was getting exciting. And then suddenly tragedy happened and it was all very sad, and then it finished. I did enjoy it. I would probably read it again. I don't know if I want to read the second one or not. Like, a lot is left unexplained, or like it's very open-ended, but do I care enough
To continue.
to continue?
Yeah, I feel like if you don't feel very affectionate towards Louis or Lestat or Armand by the end of the book, it's probably not worth continuing the series. Now
I'm not saying that I don't feel affection for them, but like...
I know, and here's the thing, like, why do I feel affectionate for them? Because I think this is one of those books where I don't think I can read it with a clear mind, because 13-year-old Cathy will always take over when I read this book. And in my head, I'm like, oh, these poor sad vampire boys. Like, I don't know why. And maybe also when I was reading this, like, Buffy the Vampire Slayer was a huge thing, so like I had Angsty Angel there. So like at the time, angsty boys were like the coolest thing ever. So to get a whole book of just boys being angsty was like...
See, Angel did my head in Buffy. He was so annoying.
I think when
I feel more affection for these three vampires
than for Angel.
Well, yeah.
And I think when I rewatch Buffy now, I'm also a bit like, oh, he's a bit mopey.
Yeah, also just like a creep. A creep.
Yeah.
He's a creep.
Yeah.
And do you know what I don't get? An issue that I had with it is that I couldn't picture Claudia in my head. Like, I work every day with like 5 and 6 year olds, so I should be able to have like a clear vision in my head of what Claudia is. But all I could think of was like this weird child shaped nothingness, or the Naja doll from What We Do in the Shadows. So it was very bizarre. And also, what's the deal there? What's the deal there? Why what? She's a child.
Yeah.
Well, she's not a child. Obviously, she is a woman in a child's body, but
She's so yeah.
and that's a point that is brought up. Like there's this bit where actually I made a note to bring this up because I felt very strongly about it. I liked Claudia more than the boys.
Yeah.
To be honest,
I feel like the book really takes off when Claudia arrives on the scene.
Here we go. I made a note of the page in my head, page 263. Estelle and Celeste are the names I remember, porcelain beauties, who fondled Claudia with the license of the blind, running their hands over her radiant hair, touching even her lips, while she, her eyes still misty and distant, tolerated it all, knowing what I also knew, and what they seemed unable to grasp, that a woman's mind, as sharp and distinct as their own, lived within that small body. And then he thinks about how he has also taken liberties with her personal, like... space and agency, and like she's just a doll. Like they treat her like a doll, but then he's in love with her, but then she's his daughter, and it's like, what's going on there? I didn't really understand it. I couldn't wrap my head around it at all.
But I don't think they can either. Because I think that's exactly what Lou's like. He doesn't know how he feels, because like she is 5 for like 85 years or however long she's stuck in that mode. So yeah, everybody does treat her like a very pretty little cute 5-year-old doll, and she's almost like a symbol to Louis in the start of like why they have to stay together. But Louis does also love the real Claudia within that, but he can't give her what she wants, which is to, I guess, grow up or to be herself or to have her independence.
And there's this bit where she she can't give him what she wants to give him. There's this bit where she talks about how the only thing she could give him was like a whole brood of vampire children or something. And it's like, it was really difficult for me to like wrap my head around that this was like, because she's a 5-year-old, but here she is talking about, I don't know. It was just strange to me.
Similarly, Louis and Lestat don't really know what to do with each other. I'm trying to not mix Lestat up with how he is in the later books. Because basically the next book is Lestat telling his story.
I'm going to pull it off the bookcase.
Oh yeah.
I'm just going to dive out a shot because it's a much bigger book. Look at the difference between those books. This is huge. How many pages is this? It's 600 pages long.
Yeah.
And yeah, this one was 360 something, but this is 600 pages long. What more could there be to be said? Is it like, actually, I want to open this because I saw something online that was like, it was like a diary entry.
Yeah. Is it people mocking the prologue of this? Because
perhaps,
the prologue of the Vampire Lestat is worth mocking. Again, 13-year-old me loved it.
Cathy and I at this point did have a little bit of a chat about the Vampire Lestat book, and we both got quite enthusiastic about it, but that's not what this video is about, so I've taken it out. But if you are interested, I will put it in the post-credits section for all those Vampire Chronicles fans out there.
I did not realise how old this book was either, because this was published in, I want to say 1976, maybe 73, 76.
I wonder when the Vampire Lestat came out.
But in my head, because the only thing I really knew about this going in is that there was a movie with Tom Cruise, and I thought Matt Damon, but I've since looked it up and it's actually Brad Pitt, not Matt Damon.
Have you not seen it?
I've not seen it.
Oh, we should watch it.
We should watch it.
I've got it.
Okay. So yeah, in my head, this was published in like the mid 80s, and I know that that's only like 10 years difference, but it just surprised me that this book is like nearly 50 years old.
Yeah.
I don't know what point I was trying to make there.
No.
I also don't remember what I've even said.
Okay. Oh yeah, so before we got into like Lestat, I was talking about Lestat and Louis' relationship.
Yes.
Because I think I enjoy it because even now I love how ambiguous it is, and it's frustratingly ambiguous. I think part of the plot or the main theme of Interview with the Vampire is Louis is stuck in an existence which doesn't have meaning.
And very lonely.
He's very lonely, and like I think other vampire novels, vampires are very much like, oh, they're just demons and that's it. But this is very much like a mortal, something terrible's happened to a man.
And he wants
vampires.
They're made into vampires. He's made into a vampire without his choice, and although he's changed, he still feels like a mortal person.
Yeah. And he was Catholic, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Obviously, like, being made into a vampire would be a very big thing for a Catholic because, like, the whole wrestling with, like, eternal damnation and things like that.
That's exactly what I meant.
That's part of, like, Louis' adventure in the novel, like, going to Europe, is to try and find out from a more informed vampire, or at least a more forthcoming vampire than Lestat, what becoming a vampire means for heaven, hell, God, Satan, that kind of thing.
Exactly. So yeah, Louis is searching for like a grand meaning, and he isn't given one. And I think that also connects to why him and Lestat can't connect. Like, Louis almost wanted there to be a great brotherhood between them. I think Lestat wants that too, but neither of them can provide it for the other. So Lestat,
they have different priorities.
Yeah.
Like, they just don't line up.
No, and like Lestat wants Louis to be something that he's not. And Louis wants answers from Lestat that he's not prepared to give, and yet they're kind of both dependent on each other. Lestat has a very different version of events and thinks that Louis twisted it, which is really quite fun.
I really want to read this book.
Well, now I think it as a book of the 70s and like a sci-fi fantasy book of the 70s, we're still kind of in the tail end of like postmodernism, where like artists and writers were grappling with the idea of, you know, we don't have religion, and like in the early 20th century we turned to no religion, we'll have science instead. And then World War II happened, and they're like, oh, we just had a massive big war that wasn't fought on religious grounds, and science contributed to mass atrocities there. What have we got left? And where are we going to find our meanings? What if there is no meaning? And a lot of like postmodern literature is about finding the humour in that and the irony and the flippancy, but this is more of like a sincere searching of that and holding the angst of it. Look how deep I got with that.
A lot of that went way off.
Okay.
I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I agree.
Sometimes a literature degree just catches up with you. What did you think of Armand?
I don't know if it was the way that Louis talks about him. And I really liked him. Like, he was so charismatic, and I was captivated by him. And maybe that's just me being like, a cool vampire. Or maybe it was like me pulling from the way that Louis talks about him, because Louis is very drawn to him in the beginning. I really liked him. I thought he was really cool. And then it just... Why did Claudia have to die? I don't understand it. I'm trying to like put it together in my head. So Armand gets Louis out of the coffin, and he tries to get him to leave straight away, but Louis realises that Claudia isn't coming with them, and he's like, we have to save her. And they find Claudia's burned remains, and Armand says, I couldn't have prevented it. And then later on, he I can't remember specifically the phrasing of it. It's something like, you could have told me anything you wanted about Paris, Armand. Even that it was that it was you who killed her, who forced her out into that yard and locked her there. So it's not even, they haven't explicitly said Armand has done it. He says, you could have told me anything. And Armand says, what, even if I told you that I was the one who did it? So he's not saying that he did do it.
Yeah.
It was just very confusing to me. I didn't understand it. I was really confused.
Yeah, I think my theory is...
And if Louis thought that he'd done that the whole time, then why was he still with him? Because he wasn't... Like, they were together to, like, combat their loneliness, but they weren't doing that.
No.
They were just being lonely next to each other. And they clearly weren't doing that because Armand was like, I'm dying. So I just didn't understand it. I didn't understand it, Cathy.
Again, I think that's part of, like, the tragedy of the book. And I think my theory is that there's just, like, a sequencing of people expecting other people to save them. And none of them can or will or, like, are able to do it. And most of them aren't really trying because they're all a bit selfish, looking after themselves.
And why did he kill the boy? Why did he kill the boy that was like his personal refrigerator?
I think Armand was like, in his head,
he was like cutting all the ties that he had so that he and Louis could run away.
Yeah, come on, Louis, we'll run off. And also like, maybe Louis half wanted it to believe like, oh well, Armand couldn't do anything about it, I couldn't do anything about it, but now at last I'm free to get what I always wanted, which was to have like the guide and mentor who actually knows things and he won't withhold things from me. So we'll try this. And maybe he already half guessed but kept suppressing what he thought he knew about Armand. And Armand kind of wants Louis to like bring him into like the new age. And neither of them can do it because they're both just sad boys.
Yeah. Sad boys.
And I think Armand is so desensitized from centuries of killing that...
Why does it matter?
Yeah, Armand probably did think, well, I got rid of my boy, you lost your girl. It's the same thing.
But it's not the same thing.
I know, but Amon doesn't understand that because he doesn't really understand love. But Louis does. Kind of.
Wait, but did he?
But he doesn't. He talked about love and the fact that he loved his maker.
Yeah.
And Claudia wasn't human. She was a vampire.
Yeah.
I just didn't understand why she had to die when like it had been laid out. it had been perfectly planned out that her and Madeline would go off and live this happy life as mother and child.
Yeah. I think they are evil vampires.
Okay.
So I think Amon just couldn't cope with the possibility of a reunion, or that she'd be out there and Louis would always be tied to her.
Made me angry.
Yeah. Well, like, they are evil.
No! I want my vampires to be good boys.
And you know, he said that you couldn't really picture Claudia.
Mm-hmm.
Can you picture Armand?
In my head, Armand looks like a young version of the guy who plays Marcus in the Twilight films. You have no idea
I
who
can't
that
remember
is.
who Marcus is in the Twilight films.
But yeah, I can picture
You
I can picture an Armand in my head.
Because when we watched the movie...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I, when I was near to the end, I looked at the IMDb for the movie and for the TV show that is releasing. They have both gone very differently with the Armand that exists in my head. But that, I mean, everyone is white, aren't they? So
Yeah. I think, like, the rest of... I can't wait for you to watch the film. It's quite fun. And, like, Kirsten Dunst plays Claudia. And she's amazing.
Okay.
For somebody so little. She's not 5, she's like 11 or 10. Okay. But it makes me laugh because Antonio Banderas plays Armand in the film. And he does a brilliant job. And I think I saw the film before I read the book.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really hard for me to picture Armand as he is in the book. Because he's ginger, isn't he?
Auburn.
He's Auburn and, like an Italian painting.
Yeah.
That's what they keep describing like, and I can picture that, but the moment my mind slips, it's Antonio Banderas again.
I couldn't really picture Louis either because in my head he was Jacob Anderson from the TV show.
Yeah.
So in my head that's what Louis looks like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know that in the book he's got like shoulder length, dark, wavy hair.
Yeah.
But
I know. Once your head decides something, that's it.
Indeed. So yeah, there were also some of my chaotic first time reader thoughts and some of Cathy's like well thought out literature student thoughts. If you have read an interview with the vampire and want to let us know what you thought or like bring counters to any of the things that we've said, if you want to explain why Claudia had to die, aside from just saying because the vampires are evil, Rachel.
They're not good people.
Let us know in the comments.
We release videos every Friday except for next weekend where you'll have a video on Friday and Saturday because...
Well, it's still on Friday.
Still on Friday. Because we'll be sharing our monthly reading journals, wrap-ups, everything we read in October you'll know about. So we'll see you then. Bye! Poor mopey Louis.
I'm sorry, I've opened this on the first page.
Yeah.
And he has an album? What?
Yeah. So the vampire Lestat.
This is like. Have you ever heard of the fanfic My Immortal?
No, I know the Evanescence song. Oh, actually, no, I have heard of this fanfic.
Yeah, so it's like this infamous fanfic.
Yeah.
This kind of like reminds me of that.
Yeah.
I've really derailed the conversation.
Yeah.
Do you know what else surprised me? I can't even remember what we were talking about.
Wait, I need to tell you more about the vampire Lestat though.
Okay.
Are you going to edit this?
Yeah.
Good luck. Okay, so just for your amusement, the vampire Lestat, why is it so much bigger? It's because the vampire Lestat, he starts telling the story after this interview becomes a world famous book.
Okay.
So Lestat wants to get his version out, but he only releases his version out after he's already decided to become like a global rock star.
Okay.
And then he tells the history of his past, which also involves him. You know how like Louis spends most of this book trying to search for like the meaning of vampires and where we've come from?
Mm-hmm.
Lestat already knew a lot of it,
Mm-hmm.
and we kind of find out how Lestat knows it and what he knew and what he was hiding.
Did Armand make Lestat?
No.
Okay. Thank you for that spoiler. I guess we're spoiling the whole series.
But the man, I think, have I got this right? The man who made
everything that happened when I'm a teenager and up.
Yeah.
In all the books I read them.
But the man who made Lestat also made Armand.
Ooh.
I think I've got that right. It has been a while since I've read the whole series.
But Armand and his creator were like in love.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. And now I really want to read this.
That is quite a fun adventure, but it is 600 pages.
That's nothing.